part 2 today or tonight I should say, of our series looking at some of the best music studios, sound producers, engineers here on the Central Coast. We're here right now at the Grove Studios. Cam is with me, of course, and we are with Owen and Scott from the Grove. First of all, we're really stoked to be here because this is obviously a venue and a studio and a space that we've spoken about so much on the show. We've heard about, we've read about, we've seen photos. We can confirm it's as good. It's actually far better in person than you can imagine based on the photos. It's really, really nice. So props for making such a fantastic space to begin with, and welcome to Homebrewed.
Thank you so much for having us. It's awesome.
So today or tonight at the Grove, well, you've got an open day coming next week, and we're here to chat about that. Tell us a little bit about what that open day is going to look like and what people can expect.
Sure. So here at the Grove, we also run the Grove Studios Academy, which is an RTO that delivers a diploma of music sound production. So that's teaching students all about essentially what we do here and what studios around the world do, and making records for artists, and then helping, create the sounds that artists are looking for in the studio, and then delivering that sound on the live stage as well. We also look at music for film and television, which is a massive part of the industry as well. So we look at, recording dialogue and sound effects and syncing that all to vision. And we also look at music business management skills, so all of our students can leave with, a great set of business skills behind them to carry themselves in the creative industries. So on our open day on September 9th, we're going to have all the studios open for everyone to come and look through this space that we're in at the moment, the control room through there, Studio 2, which is our main classroom, and Studio 4, the barn, which is our other classroom. We're going to have some live music from one of our students, some acoustic stylings throughout the Grove for the afternoon. Scott's going to be breaking down one of his mixes, and we're going to have all of our lecturers up here to discuss the course and what we offer up here.
Yeah, the educational side to it is really fascinating, and I suppose something we're only tuned in probably to recently. What prompted, has that always been a part of the Grove, and if not, what prompted the desire to deliver something like that for students?
It's interesting. I had a studio before the Grove, so we've had the Grove Studios for 10 years now, but prior to that, it was built by the bass player from INXS, Gary Beers.
Who? Sorry.
Great band.
Just some unearths.
Yeah. One of them was local. What I was finding is that we were having interns come into the studio, BJB Studios, which was in Surrey Hills through the 2000s. And I was just watching them gain so much knowledge, becoming an intern and then going on to become an assistant, going on to then become an engineer, and was constantly seeing people coming in and gaining so much knowledge. And, these people were often going off to become, really great engineers and producers and mix engineers themselves. So we started put a little bit of organisation around that intern program, and in terms of getting people in, and that started to develop into an idea of teaching and training and putting some organisation around that. And then that led to when I got the Grove, just this facility. It's 25 acres. There's 4 studios. It's a great campus to have a lot of people. So the idea of formalising that and becoming a registered training organisation came about when we started to deliver courses for TAFE, and that just was going really well. People were loving being on the property, knowing that great bands were working up one end of the property, and they were learning how to work with those great bands down the other end. And so we were a little bit limited in that situation, so we decided to become our own RTO, develop our own curriculum, and that was about 5 years ago now, and it's just been growing steadily over that time.
It's fantastic. We should mention too, Scott, you're the owner of Grove. You just touched on there, been doing so for 10 years. Owen, you're now the manager of the studios, but you sort of worked your way up as an intern as well, which I guess is part of what the open day is going to be about. People that want to get into the industry who eventually want to get into your position. So tell us about how you sort of started off as an intern and how you worked your way up now to managing these studios.
Yeah, for sure. I started interning here while I was still studying, and that was the year before we started running the Grove Academy as its own RTO.
So what were you studying?
I studied the same thing that we deliver here, essentially audio engineering, sound production. I just didn't get to do it here, unfortunately. But literally my second day as an intern here, I kind of started the internship not really knowing what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be an audio engineer, but I originally thought I wanted to go into live sound or something in that sort of space. And my second day as an intern, I was sitting in the room just over there on one of the red chairs, and Scott was doing a session with Birds of Tokyo, and I was here all day, and in the evening they tracked vocals, and it was just one of the craziest, most awesome things I'd ever witnessed. And watching like a super professional band kind of all work together and collaborate on, a song all day long. And then, it was like 8, 9 o'clock at night and they were still putting in like 110% brain capacity into, these nitty gritty tiny bits of vocal, and, everyone being so supportive and, providing constructive criticism and, all working towards a common goal of making an amazing song. And just being a fly on the wall for that, I just thought was the best thing ever. So I kind of then said to myself that, I definitely want to move into a studio and a production space. And I just went as hard as I possibly could through the internship, and then was fortunate that I got asked to stick around and become an assistant. So I finished studying while I was an assistant engineer here. And that was 2019, which is the first year that the E-Academy ran as an RTO, which was great. And all through that year, I was finishing studying while doing a couple of days here as an assistant engineer. Got to work with amazing producers during that time. Got to assist for like Burke Reed and Mitch Kenny and Greg Wales and Scott a bunch of times, and that was awesome. And then through that year, I also got to see the Academy running as well, which was super cool. And I had this kind of weird moment at the end of that year where I was wrapping up my degree, which had taken me 2 years, and the first group of students were finishing their degree that had taken them a year, and they'd done it here at the Grove in a super cool spot. I was in a weird office building in Sydney and have a HECS debt that's just horrible. And I was sitting in the classroom because I was there to like help pack up after the day of class, and all of the students were listening to their final assessments that they were submitting for the year. I just remember thinking like, holy crap. I was like, these kids have studied for like half the amount of time I don't have a HECS debt. And I was like, they are like on par, if not better than me. And I just remember thinking like that was awesome that was happening simultaneous to like at a place that I was working.
So a testament to the Grove Academy.
Yeah, definitely.
Really,
and that's why I can vouch for it so hard, I think, because I've seen like firsthand what other places offer versus what is being offered here and like the outcomes. I guess that's, and then from there I kept working here as an assistant engineer, and at the start of 2020 became the studio manager.
That's awesome. And we know each other socially. We played soccer together, and I was amazed you could make half of the games because any other time you weren't playing, you were here at the Grove Studio. So I know you definitely worked your butt off.
Yeah, I'm the sports and sound guy. That's all I do. Yeah.
That's us too, really. Yeah. So that's our whole personality.
Yeah.
I think that's, Owen's a really good example of studios offer a really wide variety of skills, whether it be, producing and mixing to entrepreneurialism, great ideas pop up on how to book the studio, but having the school, like how do we promote the school, marketing ideas. And I think that's a really testament to Owen that he's, got a really broad range of skills. And I think, that's what we try and teach at the Academy is that, it's a big industry out there, and there's lots of positions for people, not, whether it be engineers and producers, but there's a big live industry, there's education, there's film, there's radio, there's podcasts, there's, so I think Owen, having just such a broad understanding of what was out there, he naturally went into understanding the education side of it as well, and that was like just really impressive and to see. And you know, we see that in our students kind of come in not knowing what their path is, gaining the experience, spending some time in Studio One, spending some time with the lecturers that we have who are all have sort of expertise in different fields, and just seeing them grow and naturally get excited about one of those paths.
Yeah, and if we could touch on some of the lecturers that you do have delivering this course. I mean, we spoke to Jack Negro not long ago, and he said he comes up here and will deliver classes and things like that. So, I mean, already in that name alone, that's an excellent person to be learning the trade from. Who else is here delivering some of this content?
Yeah, sure. Our course was written and continues to be developed by Mark Tinson, who, you know, very humbly dubs himself the godfather of Newcastle rock and roll. But Mark, he walks the walk as well. I mean, he played in you know, heaps of bands, Rabbit being one of the awesome hair metal bands that he played in back in the day. So yeah, Mark Tinson wrote the course, and up until this year was teaching as well, but he's still involved as the head teacher of the course. We also have Jason DeWild, who's one of our heavily involved lecturers, and Jason is fantastic. He's been, you know, teaching music and sound production for longer than I've been alive, and he just has this incredible ability to create incredible sounds, but also explain to you in the most digestible way possible how he's doing it as well, and the, you know, the processes that Jason is going through. He's a fantastic lecturer. We have Tristan Forbes, who teaches our live sound stuff. Tristan has done a bunch of tours around with many different artists and has some venues that he looks after on the coast as well. And those venues are available to our students to use for assessments and stuff. This weekend, or the weekend just gone by the time this comes out, our students are all up in Newcastle doing the Jazz Festival at the Town Hall. So they're doing that with Mark Tinson, who wrote the course, and Tristan's going to be up there as well. And then we have Sasha and Mark, who look after our music for film and television units. And Sasha and Mark both work, you know, Mark does a lot of work in sort of the reality television space, which is often hilarious to talk to him about. And then Sasha does heaps of work on documentaries. So they both kind of come from different sides.
Very different styles of television.
Yeah. Both are documentaries.
Yeah, absolutely. We also have Nat Love as part of our teaching team as well. And Nat is a Grammy-winning engineer and producer. He worked under Michael Brower for a long time, who's a New York-based mix engineer, and he's worked with like Paul McCartney, Beyonce, Coldplay, like, you know, everyone that there is to kind of, you know, gawk at. Nat's been a part of a lot of those records, and him passing that knowledge on to our students as well is something that we definitely think is, yeah, pretty invaluable.
So for this open day coming up, what will students expect, or not just students, but what will anyone who comes along expect to see on this open day?
So I guess the big thing is there's a lot of interest in the space. I mean, you can see it.
We had interest in the space too.
Yeah, exactly. So not only do we get potential and interested students coming to look at the space, we actually quite often get a few people who are just walking through to look at the property itself. But, you know, the open day, we aim to allow students to come and look at the campus, check out the studios, but also talk with, we have lecturers present, and we're all present to just talk about what is involved in the course, what the outcomes are, what our goals are to teach the students. I break down a mix, so often I think this one will be like breaking down a DMA's mix that I've done, giving students an insight into you know, what that takes, the skills around that, and the technical side of mixing a song that I think most of them know. Again, yeah, the main idea behind the open days is to open up the space to people to just come and look at how awesome the classrooms are. I mean, they're really special. It's a working control room, but we have 18 iMacs that are complete workstations, so everyone has their own keyboard and music creation station, and that's, you know, in a beautiful control room.
I saw them all in my walk up, actually, all the Macs there. That's really cool. And I think it's cool that with the Academy and also with the Open Day, you're making it really accessible for people to get into the industry, for people like Owen, because when you look at the mixing desk and you look at a lot of the equipment, it just can be incredibly overwhelming. Just going, oh my God, there's so many knobs and buttons and sliders, and like, how can I know how to make any of that work to produce music? So I guess that's also part of the goal of the Open Day, is to try and make it a bit more accessible for someone who might have an interest in it.
Totally, yeah, disarming that fear of a 56 channel console. It's like
even for us, we've got radio panels, but that's just like a whole next level.
Totally.
That one struck absolute fear into me as I walked. It's like, I want to look at it and I want to touch it, but I will not be doing it.
Yeah, I'm always just like, it's just like 56 of the same thing. So you learn one and you've got it. You know how to use it, which is not true. But,
You could have fooled me.
Yeah, I mean, I always just go back to when I got that bug and had that feeling that Owen had when, he walked into that Birds of Tokyo session. I think there's something about, if you've got that bug within you, to actually go into a recording studio, because it's such a sensory thing. Like, the feeling changes, the acoustics affect your kind of senses. There's just so much cool technology and design, and it's a real experience. And for me, that affected me when I first went into studios. So like, that's why we allow people to come in, and we invite people to just come and check it out to see if they've got that bug within them.
I imagine a lot of people would as well. How did you get started in this line of work? I don't want to make it all about Owen, so I'll ask you some questions.
Yeah, I guess I was a budding young musician. Played drums in punk and rock bands through the 90s, and then did a degree in fine arts, and sort of fell in love with noise music and composing noise music and avant-garde and experimental music, I guess. And that led me to kind of build a home studio, which kind of outgrew the house. And then, yes, started working with a studio in Surrey Hills that I then became an owner of, called Big Jesus Burger Studios.
What a name.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. Known as BJB or Big Jesus Burger. But we made, awesome records through the 2000s, like the Presets, Sleepy Jackson, Silverchair, you name it. Like, it was the place to go. So for me, that's, that through that era, just falling in love with working with developing artists and building their career with them, building sounds with them, and just, totally falling into a life of studio work. And I guess that studio went for about 10 years. And just as we shut it down, just, rent was going up. I started to work for record companies, and it all just kind of bubbled up, and we let that go. But it was only about a year after the Grove was for sale. And, this place is just something that if you're into studios, you just have to sell everything and beg, borrow and steal to I don't even feel like I own it. I feel like I'm the caretaker while I'm here. It's sort of that big, It's a beautiful space.
And when you did embark on that mission with the Grove, could you, it's a hard question to answer, but could you foresee what this would become? Because right now we're looking at one of the most in-demand studios. We're sitting in one of the most in-demand studios in the country. We've got bands traveling around the place, and it's been a pretty rapid ascent. You're now delivering education here, hands-on education that is radically different to what's been offered for students like Owen, and the status that it now holds within the Australian music industry, particularly obviously the Central Coast music scene. Is that something that was your direct intention when you took it over, or was it just we're having a punt, we're going to try and create a good space and we'll
No,
see
it was
what happens?
absolutely my intention. Yeah, like I think having started it as a budding engineer and producer, and then forming relationships with artists who were getting success, and understanding that kind of pathway of working and developing artists, developing sounds, seeing that success, and building that as a business to focus on aiming to work with those bands with the determination to take off, from an early stage was something that I just fell in love with. It's kind of like the creation of a new sound, and seeing that growth and seeing that success. That for me, that's what I love, and I wanted to bring what I saw happen in the Surrey Hills studios to the Grove, and make it the place that was completely designed for bands to be able to get away from everything else and come and just truly focus on making music and not being distracted by everything, all the other noise that's out there. And I think that's the main kind of appeal of the Grove, is that you're away from Sydney, you're surrounded by beautiful nature in an absolutely world-class studio. I think the natural environment is just as inspiring as these incredible studios up here. So, and then I think going back to what I said earlier about that process of seeing young people come in to the space and start learning. I mean, that model I started developing at BJB, and then seeing just this facility and what we could do here with education, it just was a natural progression.
And the other thing that really struck me, I suppose, is when we went through COVID, we saw so many people, because of the kind of lack of support, leave the music industry with a lot of talented minds, many within this space too. So do you see what you're offering here as an antidote to that? Because people are now coming back, and there's this interest from young people, and there's a clear pathway, and it's hands-on, and they can see the bands that they may be working with in the future and what they'll be doing, rather than sitting in maybe a sterile classroom in the middle of the city. The whole idea of it is more accessible because it's here and better presented. Like, do you see it as an antidote to kind of that exodus of talent that we saw?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I look at it in two ways. One way, it's like a fine art. It's like a painting degree. You're going in there to hone your skills. You may not come out. You'll come out with a far greater understanding of the industry. But a big goal for me is to build up your chops as an artist, as a producer, or as an engineer. So, that's in a way. It's a sort of research into yourself and into what you want to do. I think through COVID, we actually got really busy through COVID, of people who I think were usually very busy with their own lives. And then all of a sudden we're like, what do I really want to do? What is that passion that I have within? And it didn't last all of COVID, but at the start we were so busy, and we had our biggest leap in students coming in. We had to dramatically shift the course to being online for those really heightened parts of COVID. But I feel like for the younger generations, it's a great first step to just gain insights and develop those initial skills and gain an understanding. So, whether they finish the course and then realize that it's not for them and exit music and understand it's not for them, I think that it's a great year of diving in and seeing what you love about the industry.
Yeah, and like to be able to work and just interact with some of the biggest bands in the country. As Eamonn mentioned, it's one of the most in-demand studios in the country. And out the front, before you come into these studios, you see, DMA's records, Birds of Tokyo, etc. Like there's been some truly world-class bands come through into this space. And if you are lucky enough, like Owen was, to be able to witness them doing what they do at the peak of what they were doing, like it's truly going to be motivating and inspirational to, okay, that's exactly what I want to do.
So true. So true. Yeah. I think, we keep this kind of mystical side to Studio One, which is, the students get to come up here, and especially when they move on to the advanced diploma and towards the end of the diploma. But, there's this beautiful kind of magic of who's up there today and, who can I spot, hanging out the front of the studio and stuff. And I think that's just a really good, system to keep that ambition to get up here and realise what's going on.
There was a great moment a couple of years back. I think it was maybe 2 years ago. June Rats were up here and they just took a lunchtime walk with a footy, and then we found them like down with the students kicking a footy at lunchtime with like all the students. I was like, what is going on? But yeah, it's just a great environment to kick a footy with June Rats. Like it's a good
that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. That's what they do at their lunch break too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And in terms of like, that's the student side of it. And you also offer accommodation for artists, and it's like a sanctuary and a place to escape for artists. So for those that might be wondering, if there are anyone wondering, why is it so important for artists to have not only a place to come and record, but a place to then go and rest their head and this expansive property around it as well?
Look, I think you get into a rhythm is a big thing when you hear. It's a big difference is that when you're living and breathing a project, and you get to work for as long as you want to here. It's because it's live-in. It's open 24 hours to work. So you can really dive in to the project, and then to wake up in such a special environment, whether it be walking across in the Strickland Forest that's across the road, or taking a walk through our property here, sitting on the back deck over the Billabong. There's just something inspiring about every part of the space. There's something about a recording studio that's purpose built that impacts collaboration, and I think that that's something that people have kind of lost a little bit with the move towards home studios. People producing by themselves in their bedroom as opposed to purpose built, perfectly tuned, large, live rooms that are designed for whole bands to play, to go down to tape, as opposed to, battling it out in a room that's not designed in your bedroom. There's a big difference. I love both. Don't get me wrong. Even in my bedroom here on this property, I've got a little studio. So I get the advantages of both. But I think given that there is so much more music being made these days, that and probably the percentage of people that actually get to experience what it's like to collaborate with people in a space like this, in an environment like this. Once you've done it, it's you get it. You get why it enhances your creativity, it enhances your focus, and it's a huge amount of fun.
Yeah.
You can find something, whether it be, having a barbecue, cooking, big kitchen facilities. It's super comfy. There's a producer cottage on the other side of the Billabongs for some people to get away. It's just, it's designed for people to have a great time making music.
On that purpose-built aspect, just even walking into this room, like, that's a thick, heavy door. And I was like, well, of course it is. That makes complete sense that it is thick and heavy for obviously soundproofing and all of that.
Keeping the noise in and keeping the noise out.
Yeah, the sound of the frogs is a big one.
Yeah, cicadas in the summer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the cicadas, yeah. There's also like an extra bit of magic or majesty to this room, I think, as well, because it's one of sort of the rare places, definitely in Australia, that from the second, ground was broke, the slab was laid, it was always going to be a music studio. It's not like a warehouse space that's like retrofitted to, still have a tuned live room or whatever. It's always has been a music studio, which I think there's like a feeling to it that is really cool about that for me. It's almost, it's like the classic sort of cliches if the walls could talk sort of setup, but something about that just tucked right into the bush and away from everyone else is pretty, there's a little bit of magic about it or something.
Now, you spoke about, you don't just teach obviously the studio recording side of things, but also the live version and the recordings of things. How does that sort of differ? Because obviously in a live environment, it's very different to your purpose built. Every sound outside's left out and everything inside's meant to be. And how do you sort of teach the differences there? And I guess it all starts with the recording, right? If the recording's bad, you can't fix anything. That's one of the things we learn.
I mean, we
still learning.
We do, we do a couple of different setups and scenarios for our students. So, I mean, one of the great advantages to the kind of the wide range of lecturers that we have is like the people who are teaching the studio stuff are the studio guys, you know what I mean? You got Jack, you got Jason, you got Nat, and those are the people that that's all that they do. And that's the same for Tristan. Like Tristan is the live sound guy, and that's all that he does. So he drills into students sort of, the regimented workplace health and safety stuff that all goes around the live sound stuff as well. But then also like the almost more like fast thinking, quicker problem solving, like, the singer's mic doesn't work anymore. Where's the backup one? Like, what do you do? And, we kind of start with like small setups here at the Grove. We've got the deck of Studio 4, the barn, which is our second classroom. And they can sort of start there with, it's almost like, kind of imagining what your first gig as a live sound engineer will be like, mixing Sunday lunch at the pub, someone singing a Harry Styles cover. And then we sort of moved down to a bunch of different venues around the coast. We use like the Entrance League, Drifters Wharf. As I said, this weekend, they're all going up to the Jazz Festival at the Newcastle Town Hall. So then we kind of both simulating those bigger gigs, but then just actually doing those bigger gigs as well with the students. So we're kind of, taking step by step and building it all up into to where they're going for the live sound stuff as well. But it's, like I said, it's something that I thought about doing at the start of my career and just steer clear of it with a 10-foot pole now. It's just the thought of it terrifies me.
Is it just a high pressure environment?
I think so. And I think like you've also like when you're in the studio, you've got, if you're the producer and the engineer, you got the band to deal with, and that's awesome. If you're a live sound engineer, you got the band and the 1,000 beveraged up people in front of you. And like, I just couldn't, something about it I couldn't do it. It's terrifying.
I've been in those crowds where things aren't going to plan and they're bloodthirsty. They're totally bloodthirsty. You always do feel a little bit of empathy for the engineer behind them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sympathy, I should say.
Yeah.
But flip that to doing a mix at a festival when there's 20,000 people absolutely loving it and you're in control of the sound. Like what a high.
Yeah.
Have you been on that side as well?
No, I've done in the early days. I did some tours. I mean, the Enmore was probably the biggest live gig I've mixed, but
still pretty decent size.
Yeah, but I've done I guess working for EMI over the years. Empire of the Sun was one of the bands that I worked with and looked after from a label capacity. And John Boy Rock was their live sound guy, who's an incredible live mix engineer. And just knowing him and working with him and going to festivals all around the world and seeing the payoff for him. And just how exciting those big festivals are to do sound, and standing next to him at the desk and watching that all unfold is awesome.
It'd be a completely different world, wouldn't it? Because like obviously if you want to get the mix as close to perfect when you're in here, but you've always got the safe net of, all right, the bands have gone now, or the band's next beat, let's listen back. Add a little bit more gain here, a bit more reverb
it's a different
here.
thing. Yeah, no, live is about capturing the performance.
Yeah.
And these days, you've got some live stems, but it's all that. It's it's capturing a performance on stage, whereas in the studio it's about developing and creating something for playback that sits in this world of stereo, and you've got so much more time and so many more, coming back and doing overdubs. I mean, it's more of a long creative process as opposed to getting the most out of that moment.
Yeah. Sorry, as you were.
One thing that I always loved about live sound is just the crew. Like you're the front of house guy, but there's the roadies, there's the monitor guys, there's the lighting guys, and that team of roadies and of the live sound, the live team. It's just an awesome experience to see how they work together and the camaraderie, and it's just a beautiful thing.
And that team, I guess, is a lot of what we lost during COVID, because obviously they couldn't hit the road and play live gigs.
That's right.
So out of your students that you have coming through at the moment, like how many are in the academy at the moment?
Our main goal is to have 2 classes of 18 each year. So, with the 2 classrooms, we have 18 workstations.
Yep.
So we're at that capacity, and then we run an advanced, which is a smaller number, usually around 12. So I'm not really good at quick maths when I'm on a podcast.
Neither are we.
We're not good at slow maths either.
But out of those, I guess, how many wanting to pursue the live and how many wanting to pursue the more studio?
It's another maths question.
Yeah. So I think the majority, it's a real mixture. We get artists, like performers and artists, who want to learn how to record their own music better and learn, self production for their own music. Then we get budding producers and engineers who want to record other bands and become producers of other bands. We get beat makers who are keen to make their own hip hop, electronic music, become a producer of their own productions, so to speak. Then we get another portion of people who are interested in live. But I guess, the majority of them are artists and producers. And then, I can't give you an exact percentage, but then, that would be the majority. And then live and film would be the second part of it.
And we see lots of students kind of come in and, I guess, do what I did and kind of flip-flop as to, what they thought they wanted to do versus what they end up doing. I mean, we have, lots of students. We have, a bunch that I can think that are working in studios at the moment. I mean, one of them is recording this for us at the moment. Jack is Grove Studios Academy alumni. We've got a couple that are working in radio as well up in Newcastle, and then like a bunch working in live sound, because the demand for jobs in live sound, especially post-COVID, is incredible. So lots of them do start as, stagehands and helping unloading trucks and stuff, and then working into monitor engineers and front of house engineers as well, because there's just so much work there for them as well.
Which is no different to starting out running and grabbing coffees and drinks for the bands, and then eventually you're managing the studio yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, we're on a 25-acre property, so when I'm running a business in that space with accommodation and a school, so our interns, the aim of an intern is to give them a broad understanding of what it's like to run that business. So there's a lot of, whether it be looking after the property to running coffees to helping clean to, to sitting in on sessions. It's a really wide, there's a really wide variety of experiences.
And it helps them identify what they do and don't like, similar to Owen going, you know what, I don't like the live stuff. It's because he had sort of the more hands-on experience to be able to know that's not what I enjoy doing. I enjoy sitting in the studio.
Yeah. The week after that Birds of Tokyo session, I came in and we pulled apart the console in Studio 2 and then chopped down a tree. So
In that order.
Yeah. It's, we had an interesting intern who I think was expecting that, in the internship that they'd be basically running Pro Tools for the band that was coming in, and and I had to quickly remind them that I'm over 40. I've had pretty good success in this industry, and I'm booking out the studio a lot, but I'm still cleaning the toilets, and I'm still raking the driveway, and I'm still chopping down the trees. So like.
Good honest work too.
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm sure that's good for the soul from a like holistic approach when you're working in this game.
When
you want to be a part of the whole space. You don't just want to be there. When
you're a business owner, you do it. You do everything, and you do anything to make. You notice everything, so you make everything. We have a term, just reset. Like back to how it should look and feel. So all of our interns get to learn about that. Learn about what it's like to really care about a business and have it look and feel right. And then from there, that's when, artists arrive and clients arrive, and that's when work begins from that space, which is a great lesson, I reckon.
Definitely. It's interesting as well hearing about your experience, Owen, because you weren't exactly sure what you wanted to do. You knew roughly it was within this realm. And we hear in this industry in particular, it's a lot of people that don't quite know what they want to do, and then they learn they like music, and then they realise that they love this. Do you think there's like a disconnect between being able to communicate with prospective students that might be elsewhere that would love a career in music? They just don't know it yet, because it's a thing that we've heard a number of times before, and it's I suppose, how do you get yourself out in those phases? Because it just makes you wonder, like, had you not had these sequence of events that led you to here, where you're meant to be, where would you be?
My Canon event. Or it's interesting because for me personally, the reason I really love making music and I love my job is because it satisfies both halves of my brain. Like I started playing guitar when I was a kid, and I was 7, and I did music throughout high school, but I also really liked science as well, and I really enjoyed science in high school, and I feel like I get a bit of both of that, using tape machines and Pro Tools and preamps and all of the awesome bits of kit, but then also thinking about like microphone placement and the way that the sound's interacting in the room and how you're going to capture it. I feel like I get to use that like artistic sort of part of my brain, but then I also get to use the science half of my brain as well. So, I mean, I think, I love getting in the faces of, year 11 and 12 music students and kind of preaching that, because that's when I kind of realized that I was like one of those nerds at high school that like would mix the bands playing at assemblies and shit. And yeah, that's what I stood up the back of the hall and did during my lunch times. And, it was kind of then that I realized that I can, like, there is our job here. Like I didn't know what it was yet, and I think from that's why I thought I wanted to do live sound. But then coming to a studio and just experiencing a place like this definitely changed my mind, and I'm glad it did. But yeah,
it's nice to hear it was a good experience here that made you sway that way, not a bit of PTSD from your high school days.
Not a live sound beer being hurled my way or something. Yeah.
But you touched on that you also play in a band, which might be where people might recognise you from our show.
Yeah, true.
A bit of whether you're watching this or whether you're hearing that voice going, I know that voice from somewhere.
Yeah,
so
backing vocals on
how do you how do you balance the band and also being here?
I don't know. I mean, I just have a calendar really, and I kind of like, that's my Bible. And it's really funny because when I book sessions or practices or stuff, I always add my partner to the Google event as well. So often the person that I'm writing with will be like, who's Alex? Will they be coming to the session? Like, no, she will not be attending the session. It's
just so she knows I won't be home for dinner.
Yeah, pretty much. Awesome. But yeah, it's all kind of, it's kind of different hats, but it's all the same thing. And it's all working towards, I guess, a common goal of just making music and making art that is impactful and something that's going to last for people to listen to. So, I'm really grateful that all of my jobs they all point in that direction, which is great. And then it's just, running around like a headless chook while trying to be semi-organized at the same time, I guess. But Google Calendar and a day planner are my two things there, I guess.
Feel that Google Cow for the win.
Yeah.
And in terms of, obviously, we're all about music from the Central Coast, and you guys will deal with a lot of local bands too. What's your experience been like of the scene, how it's developing, where it's at right now, and the band you're interacting with? Because, Owen, we know you flicked us a band not too long ago that we've just absolutely been loving. And there's no shortage of talent here.
Give him a shout out.
In the Big Drive.
Yeah.
The songs in my head, to the band, I've listened to this song about 3 times today. So
Yeah.
it's working really well. And we then went down and watched you play in that band in Long Jetty and got to see that too. So you're kind of part of many little pieces of the puzzle of Central Coast music, but you also get this insight into how the scene is developing. So
For sure.
what's your take on it?
Well, for me, I grew up on the Central Coast, and when I was younger, all of the gigs that I would go to, like I went to my first gig when I was 4 years old. I was just about to turn 5, and it was Big Day Out 2004, and I was on my dad's shoulders in the boiler room listening to Sonic Animation, and I remember,
out Neil.
Yeah, shout out Neil. And
Surprise wasn't presets.
yeah. And then kind of getting into music my own kind of music through high school and going to gigs. It was always in Sydney or in Newcastle and getting the train down with mates and stuff. Now being a part of music on the Central Coast is so awesome because there are so many gigs that are happening now, especially there's obviously a blossoming local scene, which is great. And I love how diverse that is. Like there's a great punk scene and like kind of rocky scene with bands like Muzzle and Soda Simulator and Worm and stuff that are unreal. Then there's also like so many great sort of like pop rock indie artists as well. And all of them having like little spaces that they're playing now around the coast is great. Like places down at Woi Woi, like the Lincoln Pin is awesome. The Warrnambool Surf Club, there's always gigs on there as well. But then also like seeing these bands becoming support acts for those bigger gigs that are happening down at Drifters is super cool as well. So again, like I said, all of those being, whether I'm producing the band or they've asked me to play bass or jump on guitar or whatever, I love doing it because it's all just like in the same direction of, being a part of the local scene, and it's great to be a part of it because I've, like I said, been here since I was a kid. So, and now I get, being here and making, like I learnt to drive on Mangrove Road, driving past a big cobblestone wall and, it's great.
Yeah, it's been obviously really nice, and it feels like it's flourishing. Spaces like these play a really big role in that. And as it does move forward, Scott, you've got 25 acres here. Like, do you have plans to expand further? I mean, you're doing education here. You've got multiple studios. You've got accommodation, but you've got room to do more. Is that something on the cards?
Yeah, I mean, I went to Sydney College of the Arts in Rozelle, which is like a multidiscipline art school. So it's, you've got jewelry, photography, art, sculpture, digital arts. You've got sound studios. And I just always love the diversity of people with different interests. And I grew up in the southwest suburbs of Sydney, so to go from there to Balmain at the age of 18 and have your whole world opened up to art, music, all the different disciplines, fine arts like conceptual art, the idea of experimentation, recording studios, it blew my mind and sent me into this lifelong love of experimentation and art and pushing the boundaries and having concepts and wouldn't that be awesome to have something like that that focused on conceptual art and experimentation on the coast. So I haven't put any plans in, but obviously there's a goal there. We're just growing the academy with the demand. Like we started off with one class. Over the last 2 years, we've gone to 2 classes. As the population grows, as more people hear about us, as we develop a better product, I think we'll keep developing.
And as your students go on to prove themselves in the industry as well, it becomes a proven place where people can go, well, they're in the industry, they went here, I'm also going to study here, so then hopefully I can be in the industry.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the students come, like I've employed a number of the students who have come through, so and they're exceptional. Like the in-house engineers who came through the Grove Studios Academy that I've got now, like hands down are the best I've had in my 15-year career. Like they're right on it. They understand the space, the rapport in the studio. They're ambitious. They're super fun. They get it. So we're doing something right if I'm employing them as well.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
And you sort of that 15-year career, you're also outside of owning this awesome space. You touched on before a bit of label work as well. What are some of the main similarities and I guess some of the big differences in the two different roles?
The similarities is that ambition to find developing artists and work with them on expanding that and building their careers, finding a sound, developing their brand. Experimenting together in the studio to find what they want to say and exploring that wonderful world of songwriting. I think both sides, A&R and production, sit in that same space. And I guess that's why I've had a 10-year career in A&R as and longer as a producer, but I've never really felt a separation there. I guess one takes place in a recording studio and the other one takes place with a record label team and a group of music lovers who are either in promotions or in marketing or in brand and syncs, but they're absolute music lovers as well. So just with a different sort of speciality. So I guess how I've been able to do that is because I feel like there's a singular line of finding great artists and helping develop the best product or best song, best video clip, whatever best form of creativity with them.
It's crazy just how many actual different lines of work there are within the music industry. Like we've touched on a number of them here, but there's still more as well that we haven't even scratched the surface on. Like if you are a musician and it doesn't work out for you, it's not like I better go do accounting. Like there's so many avenues for you to pursue.
Yeah, and even again, like me, like being a musician and one of those can run in parallel and complement each other.
Well, like Owen as well. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So much, and I suppose it's nice to see places like this and hopefully conversations like this that might prick the eye or ear of somebody who doesn't quite know what they want to do, but they know they like music, to end up in a place like this. And this is playing a big role in that. So we've got the open day. We'll bring it right back round. Yep. What are the details that everyone needs to know?
Yeah, sure. So September 9th from 11 a.m. till 1 p.m. Here at the Grove, 286 Mangrove Road, Somersby. Studio tours, live music, and the best damn sausage sizzle of your life.
Ooh,
also meat-free options available.
That is
into it.
That's a big call. Big call.
Have you got the Bunnings experts? Just
No, look, I tend to get on the barbecue. Kick it off anyway. Yeah. We get the good sausages from the butcher.
Caramelize the onions up, real good.
Getting me hungry.
Well, if that didn't sell you, I don't know what will. But September 9th, you can come and check all of this out. And it, from our perspective, it sincerely is so nice to see spaces like this and places like this existing on the Central Coast and contributing what they do to the music scene here and across the country and beyond. And the proof's in the pudding. The pudding we saw out there when we walked in, there is so much of it. So if you're an artist or if someone wanted to check it out, then you would do a lot worse than to stumble into the Grove Studios. Scott, Owen, thank you so much for sitting down and chewing the fat with us tonight. It's been really, really great.
Thank you very much. Cheers.